Hello friends and welcome. Patch 7.36a came out last night and I wanted to highlight a couple important things for you in this patch because a lot of it is just like small ups and downs for like a bunch of middle ground heroes. I mean, the patch was so huge, right? It's no surprise we're all over the place. There's a couple heroes who are really good or really bad and they got some big changes I'd like to highlight, but also there's some stuff like what you see here. Force Staff and similar abilities can no longer be used on leash targets, such as Slark's Pounce, Puck's Dream Coil, Time Zone, etc. I thought this might be a bug because it wasn't documented in the last patch, but I guess it was supposed to be, so it's here now, and it is significant. As far as I can tell, this is most important to Slark players and people who are going to deal with Slark, because you can no longer use a Force Staff to get out of the leash from Pounce, which is one of the best counters to the hero. Now, actually, this is how it used to work, and for whatever reason, they've decided to revert it. I think it might have to do with the new facet on Faceless Void, Time Zone. I don't know whatever the reason, but we're back to in the past when you could not Force Staff away from Slark. So you're going to have to buy other items such as Glimmer Cape or maybe a Ghost Scepter so that he can't hit you in Pounce because you're not going to be able to depend on Force Staff anymore. Interestingly enough, enemies also can't use items on you or like the Force Staff on you when you are coiled, which is actually kind of an indirect nerf to Puck. Not that Pucks build Force Staffs, but on the time there might be a support on the team that after Puck coils, maybe you like Force Staff them to force them to break the coil to get the stun. Now you can't do that anymore. I don't think it's such a big deal. Like if you are the team against Puck, like, oh no, I can't Force Staff. You didn't do that a lot of the times anyways because you didn't want to break coil, or if you did want to break coil, you just walked out to break coil. And so the fact that you can't Force Staff until after you walk out and break the coil isn't a huge deal, but Slark Pounce, you can't walk away from it, and that's why the Force Staff was more important. It's also going to be a problem when you're playing against a Nature's Prophet who has Sprout leashes. This isn't till level 20 though, so it's not as big of a deal as Pounce, which, you know, you see that as early as like level 2, level 3 on Slark. But for Nature's Prophet, you get the Quelling Blade, but as the game goes on, you kind of depend on Force Staffs for teammates to help you out. Now you're no longer going to be able to do that, though someone from the outside could maybe Force Staff into the trees to break it to free you out. But if you are in the trees, you will not be able to use Force Staff to get out of Sprout. There's a whole bunch written here, but it's mostly bug fixes, either like tooltips or interactions with all the new facets and innate passives. So it's more just like making the game work the way it's supposed to work, so I'm not really worried about them. There's only one item change. It is to Eternal Shroud. I actually don't think this is enough. I still think this is going to be a really popular item when you kind of already do what you need to do and you just want to tank up versus magic damage. For example, Leash and Timbersaw, I think Eternal Shroud just checks a lot of boxes. It's strength, it's raw HP, it is magic resistance, base magic resistance, and you get more as you take damage, and then it gives you mana, which for some heroes that matters more than others. Like Centaur buys this item a lot. It's more for the tankiness. The mana is just like fun, but for Timbersaw, Leash, that was a big key component of it, and it's the only item that does all of this, and 5% less magic resistance is like, okay, fair, but it still does like everything that the heroes want it to. So I actually think it needs to be nerfed a little bit further because it's a pretty popular item, but it's in the right direction. If you play one of those heroes, I still think like as long as the game makes sense for it, it'll still be a good item. For hero changes, I'm not gonna lie, I'm still learning and testing everything in 7.36, let alone what has now been adjusted in 7.36a. So I'm not gonna try to dive into every single hero here, besides just like quick small nerf, small buff, stuff like that. But in the nearest future, I'll try to do a tentative, very, very tentative tier list that a lot of people have been asking for. So to start off, Abaddon has been doing pretty well. I think these are all minor changes. The biggest thing here for any Abaddon players is that Miscoil Aghanims, the way it works is being changed a little bit. So in the past, if you got hit by like a Phantom Assassin crit, and it was like a huge 2000 nuke, whatever, I don't know. Do we still call crits? No, we just call them crits. We don't call them nukes. Nukes are like spells. A huge crit, 2,000 damage from PA, and it would trigger like several miscoils from the Aghanims. But now it's going to reset, so it's only going to trigger once, and then like if she does another nuke, she'll trigger again one miscoil compared to like 3 or 4 miscoils. So versus a couple heroes who have really high damage potential, such as Sven, Phantom Assassin, those type of heroes, that is fairly significant nerf. But a lot of heroes don't have that much of an overkill threshold. It will be like a nerf to it a bit, but it's not the end of the world in my opinion. But you do have to be careful against some of those heroes. Axe. So I do want to highlight, this is retroactive, actually, the change to Coat of Blood. So any kills you get at the start of the game will give you 0.4 armor, but as you level up your ultimate, that will jump up to 0.6 per kill, and so forth. So you don't have to worry about just like losing a whole bunch of armor throughout the game, but I also think it's fair because he's doing really well right now. And so are all these other like nerfs to him. I think it's all fine. Bat Rider. So I didn't even know Smoldering Resin worked on wards and couriers, but I guess it won't anymore. The scaling on Stoked is like fine. This one though, you gotta know, guys. Sticky Napalm no longer grants vision. That is a big nerf to Bat Rider, especially support Bat Rider, where the warding game was just so easy for you in terms of checking high ground because you had Sticky Napalm and the E, which for some reason I'm completely blanking on the name of, but you know, though, he goes, you know, he starts flying, you know. That one's a much bigger cooldown that you want to save for fights compared to Sticky Napalm, which was cheap as dirt. So that is a huge nerf to the hero that I don't really understand, but that is very painful. So be aware of that. If you're a Bat Rider lover and you loved playing this guy as support, that's a pretty big hit to the hero. Dark Willow, Thorny Thicket, one of her facets, the ones that spawn more brambles, they no longer increase spell amp. I think that's totally fine. I think just the fact that the increased brambles, it's super annoying. I think it's really good. I would still take that facet a lot if you guys are into playing Dark Willow. The loss of the spell amp is like too bad, but it's not. It's for the control, really, if you're playing Dark Willow support. Okay, well, I guess solo killing carries is like kind of funny, but like really it's about the control, so I still think that facet is really good. It's a great time to play Dark Willow. Juggernaut, so one of the big winners from the last patch, just nerfs across the board, and I don't even know where to start. It's just like everything. All the damage is going down. And in particular, to highlight some for you, Swift Slash, the cast range is dropping, so that's going to make it harder for him to just like attack you until you get out of distance, then Swift Slash on top of you, and then like continue to chase and attack. The cast range losing 100 means you're more likely to be able to get away from Juggernaut. Blade form also being reduced, so the linger time is down to 2 seconds, and the agi stack is down from 3% to 2%, which I think is good. So it's just nerfs across the board. I still think he looks pretty good. Like the win rate is still like, it dropped 3%. It's still like 54 or something. So still keep playing Juggernaut, still keep playing Legion Commander. Stonehall Plate is being reduced from 100% damage to barrier to 50%, and illusions are no longer part of it. It's still really good, guys. Play Legion Commander, pick this facet. I think it's the left one, the first one. The second damage one, it's not good enough, guys, in my opinion. This is way better. Even after being nerfed 50%, it's still really good. That's how broken she was. They're trying to make reverse polarity a thing, but I don't know. It's so weird because Magnus's whole thing is being able to like combo everyone, like bring them all into one spot. And then he has AoE Horn Toss, AoE Skewer, AoE Shockwave, AoE Cleave from his ability and his allies that he has buffed up. Everyone's just AoE beating everyone that he has reverse polarityed into one spot. Then he refreshers and does it all again. And to break up that combo with reverse polarity and push everyone away so that you cannot Horn Toss, you cannot Skewer, you cannot Shockwave, you cannot Cleave them. It is so bizarre. I think some cool potential for reverse polarity is when you just need to protect a hero like Sniper and the enemy like tries to jump Sniper and you're like, no, reverse polarity. And then they like jump back in and you're like, no, Skewer away. And then they jump past you to get Sniper and you're like, no, Shockwave pullback, right? And you just kind of run interference for a Sniper Drow type hero. But I think you can do all of that with a regular reverse polarity. So I feel like reverse polarity needs more to it, which they're trying to give it by like reducing cooldown and stuff. But I don't think this is enough yet. I think it's going to need more. And I'm not sure what that is. Like just reduce the cooldown a bunch, but make maybe the stun less. Like maybe that's something. But where it's at, even with this, I think it's still in meme territory. Mirana, Solar Flare being buffed up. People have been asking me about this. I think it could be good if you're playing core Mirana, or if you have a very tempo-based lineup, which in the past used to be around a hero like Beastmaster. I don't know if that's still going to be a thing, but like, you know the idea, right? Like when it's like, oh, we just run down objectives. I could see Solar Flare on a support Mirana being kind of cool. But currently I've seen some people try it. I haven't done it myself yet, but been seeing people try it and I haven't like really felt it yet. So I don't know if the numbers just need to be buffed up or I just got to get used to it. But compared to being able to like invis gank as a team, like that's pretty good. So missing out on that is a little sad. Morphling got a pretty nice buff here in that waveform will now, it'll just start with doing 50% of Morphling's attack damage rather than needing a talent. The talent still exists and it will give you the remaining 50% that you used to have from here. So arguably a nerf to the talent, which might mean you get to take another one, although 0.8 seconds on adaptive strike doesn't sound great. So actually, you know, I'll probably still go with that right talent. I think it will open up stuff in the future, but I think right now it's still not enough compared to what other heroes have. Sand King, Dust Devil, Sandstorm. So this one's really interesting to me. He no longer gets, the Sandstorm doesn't disappear when Sand King steps out of it. So if you like blink away, it will actually follow you. Now, we tried to test this with like teleporting like across the map and see if you could just like farm across the entire map. If you go too far, it seems to just destroy the Sandstorm. So I don't know what that is, like teleporting away or twin gating away doesn't seem to work, but blinking out of it does not seem to be far enough and it will follow you wherever you go. And I think this is really cool because it means if you get an Aghanims, you just have this moving AoE stun in a team fight, which is really cool. I feel like you see a fight about to happen, you can cast W, blink Epi, jump to your target, and the Sandstorm will just like follow you and stun everyone along the way. So I don't know if it's good enough to make the hero broken or anything like that, but I think it's really cool, and we'll get to see some like fun clips maybe as time goes on, and maybe he gets a little bit of a buff. This will be like a really cool mechanic. Some nerf to Shadow Shaman. If you didn't see my video, I think he's really good, and I still think he's going to be really good. I think this is totally fair. Foul Play is a really strong passive. And again, if you die, it just resets anyways. So I think this is totally fair, and it's still a really good passive. You guys should play him if you haven't. Techies, slight buff to counteract the fact that he lost 150 attack damage, and so he's taking a lot more damage at the laning stage. It's hurt him a lot. I do think Spoon Stash, the third facet, which lets you use your backpack, neutral items work in there, which is really interesting. I still think we have to figure out how to get through the laning stage. I don't know if 0.75 HP regen is enough, but if you do and you start reaching that mid-game point, having like 3 neutrals in your backpack is really nice for efficiency for techies. And I'm pretty interested to see, like, I've only tried support techies, but I'm curious about like core techies, if you can get like a really cool build off of like neutrals working in the backpack and other items working in the backpack, of course, as you continue to farm. So maybe that's something to think about. Like maybe we're back to core techies or something. TA nerfs because she's been doing really well. The big one here is that your default Psyblade range, which is part of the reason she was so good, the spill of the Psyblades is being reduced a lot from 550 down to 350 at level 0, like whatever you start with. After that, you reach a very similar point, 750 versus 700, not like the end of the world or anything. But definitely keep in mind like that level 0 is pretty different. Tinker's been in the dumpster win rate wise. It may require a very different build. So we need to keep an eye on Tinker because this happens a lot in Dota, where a hero's identity gets changed a lot for better or for worse, and people keep trying to play the old way and it sucks, and they go like, this hero's dead. And it's true, like that version of the hero is dead. But once you figure out a new build, the hero is actually really good. But because the hero looks really bad, Valve keeps buffing it in different ways, and then eventually people figure out the real build and like, holy crap, it's absolutely broken. And then they gotta like tone everything back down. So we might be there. The heal Tinker support maybe, or like off lane that does more aura building something, it might be good. I'm hearing some reports, like I see it on the social media, like Reddit, stuff like that, that like, oh yeah, it works. I haven't tried it myself yet, guys. There's like so many things, but I am curious about it, and I'm gonna keep my eye on it because it does sound like a very cool way to play Tinker. This especially, the passive being brought from 4 down to 3 to get 1% CDR. So that effectively changes it. To reach maximum cooldown reduction, you used to take 240 intelligence, which is a lot. It's now 180, which is a lot more reasonable in the late game situation. But even in the early game, you're already getting like 10, 20% CDR pretty quickly. So very intriguing. I definitely want to try it. I just haven't gotten around to it. I'd love to hear if any of you have done it already. Let me know. For any support tiny players, I think he'll still be good, but you're going to definitely need to buy some extra clarities mangoes or some kind of mana item, because the mana cost on Avalanche and Toss is going up. So it's at max level, it is 20 higher for Avalanche and 15 higher for Toss. And that's really going to add up, because it's a hero that wants to like farm a little bit with the combo and then like weave in and out of fights using the combo several times, and he does not have a large mana pool. So that's going to hurt a lot. You're going to have to be more careful with how you use these spells, or you're going to have to buy an item to compensate for this. Last one, Wraith King was doing really well with all of his changes, and he's just going to get nerfs across the board because of that, which I think is fair. He's like really good right now, and I still think he's good. I think he's just a little bit more in line with the other heroes, but still in the realm of being a fairly good carry. So if you guys want to play Wraith King now, even with these nerfs, it's still a really good time. I think a really solid build is like 114 by level 7, and I'm not sure if you still do Radiance or if it's now going like Armlet, Deso, stuff like that. I'm seeing people try both, but I think either way the hero looks good with the changes he's got. So definitely give him a shot if you want to play him. All right, that's all I got for you guys. Keep an eye out for future videos. I'm not sure what the topics will be yet, so please leave them in the comments if you got ideas, things you want to see. Otherwise, I'll make them as I figure it out, or drop by the Twitch streams if you want to see me explore all this stuff live. See you there. Bye.